This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform to build beautiful sites for any and all of your needs, from portfolios to online stores. Hey guys, it's Celestia. And although it might sound strange given that I just introduced a sponsor, today we're going to be talking about bad sponsorships. Specifically, why I recently had to turn down a huge sponsorship, like huge for me at least, because of how deceptively and maliciously their product was being marketed, only to see that a much bigger channel in the art community endorsed them anyway. It was an experience that really made me think about the way that we, both as creators and audiences, interact with sponsored content, especially because before now, I really only had one side of the story, the audiences. I was looking at all these sponsored shoutouts on the channels I was watching and thinking, oh, cool, it must be good if this person I respect and enjoy is willing to stand by it and put their name on it. And I often did end up giving the things that they were endorsing more of a shot than I would have if they hadn't. But this whole experience really showed me that there's a lot more to it than that. There's a dark side to sponsorships on the creator side of things, and not all of them are what they seem, which was made abundantly clear to me when I saw firsthand how dishonest this sponsor was, and then watched a huge name in the community sell their audience on their service anyway. I won't be talking about this sponsor or creator specifically by name, but I will be getting into the problems that can very easily result from creators endorsing products or services that they themselves don't use or believe in. Before I do though, let me take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, one that I do use and believe in, Squarespace. Squarespace wouldn't do this to us. We love Squarespace in this house. I was actually so excited when they reached out because I had already started using it several months prior to host and create my art studio's website, and I know firsthand how good, reliable, and easy to use it is. If you're unfamiliar, Squarespace is a website building and hosting tool, and it makes making anything from an online store to a portfolio as simple and seamless as possible, with flexible templates and straightforward, versatile building tools. For my studio, I needed to be able to show a multitude of different image galleries in order to showcase all of the different portfolios, and their many gallery options and automatic image scaling made that unbelievably easy. And with the ability to quickly and accessibly integrate e-commerce and even print on demand into your Squarespace website, I could easily update it to accept orders and commissions directly. If I were a more organized person, I probably should. Anyway, thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and please go check out squarespace.com to get a free trial to build your own website, be it a portfolio for your art or a store to sell it on, or even both. And once you've built it, go to squarespace.com/DuchessCelestia to save 10% on your first website or domain purchase. All of that said, let's move on to the main topic. Let me tell you why I threw away a $600 sponsorship and why I stand by that decision, despite the fact that I needed that money for basic living expenses. $600 isn't even what I normally make from them. The sponsor was just particularly generous, which made losing it an even harder pill to swallow. But anyway, context. As I mentioned, I have no intention of naming this sponsor, and I will be sharing as little specific information about them as possible to protect their privacy. But suffice it to say that what they wanted me to promote was software. And at first, it did seem promising, so I agreed to try it out and move forward with the sponsorship. They let me try out the paid version for free, and it started out good. There were a lot of features that did work well, but it also crashed upwards of 25 times in the hour I spent using it. And then I started trying to use the features that they advertised the most, only to learn that, okay, well, I have to be a little specific here because of the nature of it, but the sponsor heavily marketed it as a free VTuber software. Specifically using the verbiage, it can turn you into a cartoon virtual human, which is carefully worded to sound like you can customize the VTuber model without actually saying that you can. And that's because you can't. There are a handful of default VTuber presets that you can choose from that you can't change at all, which they deliberately leave out of all of their information on their website. And they want the channels that they sponsor to leave it out too, and use one of the presets as if it's their own so that people think the program has that feature. Like, this is a key feature that they're trying to sell people on, and the program doesn't even have it. Their site also specifically says that the VTuber models can mimic pre-recorded audio, which I was relying on it being able to do in order to actually show the model being used back when I thought I could customize it. And that feature straight up doesn't exist at all. I asked and they said, nope, impossible, it can't do it. So at this point, I'm already backing out and telling them, dude, this program doesn't do anything you're trying to get me to tell people that it does. And I take a closer look at the sponsorship brief again to see exactly what they said about those features. And I notice that there's a section that deadass says, make it sound like it's free, but don't actually say that it's free, because it's not. The free version's incredibly limited, and if you want to use it without those limits, you gotta pay. And you gotta pay quite a bit, and via subscription-based payments too, and you guys know how I feel about those. Most of you usually tend to feel the same. I mean, you can pay a one-time fee of $75, but you still have to pay a monthly fee for premium features, so I failed to see the point, honestly. And I mean, this is my bad. I get that. I should have read the brief more carefully before agreeing to the sponsorship, because because if I'd read that part rather than skimmed it, I never would have taken it in the first place. I understand that marketing needs to be a little sneaky sometimes to get people interested and enticed, but it's effectively the same as a clickbaity YouTube title. You need to be a little clickbaity to get people to click the video, but you can't lie, or at least you shouldn't. A good clickbaity title asks or inspires a question a little dramatically that the video answers. A bad clickbaity title asks that question without the video answering it. Like there was this one from a while ago that I've mentioned before as an example because it just fills me with rage, like most things. The video was called something like, "I ran over my ex with a car," and the video was just her singing about running over her ex with a car. That right there is bad clickbait. That does not deliver the content that the title promised. Although, in fairness, I am glad that no one got hit by a car. But it might have been acceptable if that overdramatic title preceded a video with a much less dramatic story about her lightly hitting her ex with her bumper or something. Similarly, you can neglect to mention that a product is a paid service to get people's interest so that they look into it and find out for themselves, but if you deliberately imply or lead people to believe that it is free when it isn't, I personally find that scummy, especially when the not free product doesn't even have the features that it's advertised to. And I don't want to be associated with that, which is one of the many reasons that I told them I was no longer interested. But before I shut that door altogether, I took one more look at the email chain between myself and their representative, and I saw that linked in the promotional materials was a sponsored video by another creator in the art community on YouTube, with a much bigger channel than mine, like over 1 million subscribers. And they were, lo and behold, promoting this software with a huge focus on it being a free, easy way to become a VTuber, which it's not at all. And that's what really got me conflicted and contemplative about this, because this is someone that has a lot of influence, and someone whose judgment and endorsement I, as a viewer, would have been inclined to trust. And I never would have known to question it if it weren't for my own firsthand experience on their end of sponsorships. But I also want to make it abundantly clear that I'm not trying to shit on this creator for that. I'm not trying to say that because I felt the sponsor was deceptive and snaky, I can factually assert that they are. It's just my opinion. It's entirely possible that this creator doesn't share that opinion, and I 100% acknowledge that that's more than fair. It's just also possible that they did think the sponsor was scummy, but saw the amount they were offering to pay and decided to go ahead with it anyway, which, I mean, I struggle to judge that too. Squad's sponsorship calculator estimates that they probably got paid something up to $20,000 for it, and that is a large amount of money to turn down just because of any moral issues you might have with the sponsor or the product. $20,000 is a car or a down payment on a house or a vacation or a year's worth of living expenses if you're living very well within your means. And to get that, or even half of that, just to sell a shitty product you know doesn't work is, I mean, I can understand why that would not be an easy decision. Capitalism makes life miserable and unbearable for almost all of us, and considering money when it comes to tough decisions isn't something I feel right or realistic demonizing. If they sold out for that amount of money despite believing the sponsor to be dishonest, I can't judge that. People need money, and it is easy to sit on a soapbox and say, you're an asshole for promoting this, but it's a lot harder to imagine what I would do in their position. All of that long-winded bullshit is to say that my point in bringing this creator up as an example isn't to say that they're bad for endorsing this sponsor. My point is that I, as a member of their audience, would have been inclined to trust that product based on their endorsement alone, and only knew better because I had already tried the product and seen their sponsorship brief firsthand. And that made me think hard about how we as audiences actually interact with sponsored content, and how we as creators have a subsequently much larger responsibility than we might think to carefully screen and consider what we endorse. I'm not saying I, as a viewer, would buy a product just because a creator I enjoy said it's good. I think myself and most others still possess at least enough free thinking to question that first and judge the product for ourselves. And we're not just instantly brainwashed by what some YouTuber has to say in a sponsor segment. That being said, we are still influenced by it, even if it's not even always on a conscious level. Like, I wouldn't buy a $500 gaming chair that I don't need because a creator I liked was sponsored to advertise it. But I might consider using a new drawing program over the one that I was using before, even if I hadn't planned on switching, because an artist that I admire endorsed it. To enjoy a creator's channel, for the most part, means having at least some semblance of trust in their integrity, which means also having an inherent bias towards the belief that they wouldn't lie to you by endorsing anything that they don't believe in. But in reality, that's just the best faith interpretation. For a lot of creators, money may well be the reason that they're endorsing what they are, rather than genuine support and appreciation of the product. And like I already said, that's a hard thing to judge when money literally makes the world go round, and we all have rent to pay. But it's still something that we, as their viewers, should try to personally be more conscious of, because reminding ourselves of that context will help us to judge the sponsored products and services that we see more objectively and carefully. A big creator putting their name on something should not be, by default, taken to mean that it's good, and we're the ones responsible for making that distinction. It's also worth worth noting that in a lot of cases, the creators endorsing shady sponsors might not even know that they are shady. There are a lot of honest mistakes made in that regard that I do not at all mean to shit on. Yes, in this case, the sponsor was pretty obviously manipulative and the product was pretty obviously bad, but because of that, I was prompted to dig deeper into their company, and only then did I learn that this is not a one-off incident. They've got a documented history of selling software that doesn't work and using business tactics that one report says are not an outright scam, but as close as it gets to one. So even if this particular product was good and the sponsor was honest, I still easily could have missed the underlying shadiness of the company itself without further research. And then, I mean, yes, creators should be thoroughly researching their sponsors whenever possible, and it's very easy to say that, but I feel like most people don't realize how much work goes into running a YouTube channel. I spend 10 to 15 hours a day working on mine, and adding research for every sponsor to the end of those days when I could instead get some well-needed sleep sometimes feels too exhausting to do, which is why I only skimmed that brief, and I definitely learned my lesson that the sacrifice of sleep is worth it, and I won't be making that mistake again. But my point is that making time for even more research isn't always something that creators have the time or energy to do, and I'm not saying that means they shouldn't, but I am saying I understand that they're just human and people make mistakes. It doesn't help when the company looks so convincing and legitimate that questioning them doesn't necessarily even occur to you right off the bat, which was the case with this one. But even beyond researching their sponsors, I still think that what this has shown me to be even more important is the creator's responsibility to be honest with their audience. Whether they're always aware of it or not, viewers do put some amount of trust in the recommendations given by creators they enjoy, even if it's just a small amount. And I personally believe that we as creators need to treat that trust with respect and not abuse it. In my opinion, if what you're promoting is something that you can't or won't use yourself, it's dishonest to promote it as if it is. And I think audiences are owed a little more than that. And I know I just said that I can understand why creators sell out for that sweet, sweet sponsor money. And I know I said I can't rightfully judge them for doing so when literally everyone needs money. And I know that's contradictory. I see both sides now, and that's an incredibly frustrating position to be in. I believe that audiences deserve to be treated with honesty and respect when it comes to sponsored content, but I also understand that creators are, at the end of the day, doing a job and they need to be paid for it. I get both sides, and I subsequently get that there's no right or wrong answer here. Just me and a million goddamn opinions that I won't stop spewing, apparently. Not that that's a shocker. At the end of the day, I guess I can really only speak for myself and for what this whole experience has taught me. Like, for one, I need to put a lot less blind faith into the endorsements given by creators I like, and be a lot more careful to judge those products critically and on my own. I also learned that I'm pretty goddamn stupid and naive for a marketing consultant, given that I've seen these shitty marketing techniques a million times and still managed to not think to apply that knowledge to my view on YouTube sponsorships. And finally, and most importantly, this whole thing showed me exactly how important it is to only ever endorse sponsors that I actually believe in, like Squarespace or Printify or Wingfox, because that endorsement really isn't worth a whole hell of a lot to me or my audience if anyone can buy it for $600. I feel like it can be a slippery slope with sponsors. It's easy to make excuses for a product's shortcomings and endorse it anyway if they're particularly generous, and turning a blind eye to one fault can easily turn into turning a blind eye to 10. And before you know it, you're selling your audience on something that just isn't what you're saying it is anymore. And I almost fell into that trap in a combination of naivety and desperation for funding. So in that regard, I'm actually really grateful to have had this experience be the eye-opener that it was, because I can say now with absolute confidence that I know the red sponsor flags to watch out for, and you can trust that anything I recommend to you guys on this channel is going to be something that I 100% support and use myself. I know this probably sounded preachy or virtue signally or, oh, look at me, I turned down money for morals, but I don't mean it to, and I certainly don't want it to. I understand the other side better than ever now, and I can't say with complete confidence that I wouldn't have been tempted if I were in that other creator's shoes. In fact, I 100% hands down would have been. I'm not trying to pass judgment like some pillar of morality, because quite frankly, my own morality is more aptly summed up by that tweet that's just like, introducing a new alignment, chaotic lawful. I have a strict moral code, but nobody can figure out what the hell it is. I just feel like the darker side of sponsorships on the creator side of things isn't something that's talked about enough, and that maybe having a wider, more open conversation about it will help creators and viewers alike when it comes to making decisions in these situations. At the end of the day, the only real assholes here that I'm judging are the sponsors lying to their customers about defective products, and everyone else is just kind of doing their best with what they've got, at least in my opinion. But that's really it for this one. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts as either viewers or creators yourselves on the nature of YouTube sponsorships these days? How much stock do you put in the endorsements that you see online? Let me know in the comments, because I'm guessing this is something everyone's gonna have a very different experience with. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always always, to channel members Cafe Soleil, Joseph Solomon, Unknown Code, Lucian Izapa, and Abyss Reborn, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Shirome Artiste, Elengshi, Soul Crystal, and Kim Yen for their support. And I'll see you in the next one.